Hey guys, Break here, and whilst a new episode of the Gold Cap Challenge is coming out tomorrow, today I thought I'd go over a few reasons why your items might not be selling. A lot of people always ask me why their items are not selling and mine are. What's the difference? Why can't they get sales like I do? Why can't they get sales like other gold makers do? What's the difference and what are they doing wrong? And the truth is, guys, you're not actually always doing something wrong. Sometimes it can be things out of your control or relatively out of your control. But there certainly are some ways in which you can try and make your items sell a bit better. So this list is not going to be super complicated. A lot of you might think it's really obvious, but hopefully some of them you might not have thought of and might be useful for some people. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is competition. Now this is particularly relevant if you're on a high pop server or a medium to high pop server. Basically, if loads of people are just undercutting you all the time, then you'll never get any sales, because when someone goes to the auction house, they're just going to buy the cheapest one mostly, and that means that you are not going to sell anything. Now there are a couple of ways to deal with this competition, and the most obvious one is to undercut more frequently. So if you have an auction house add-on, which I suggest you all have, either Auctionator, you can check for undercuts, or TSM, you can run a cancel scan. That's just going to check what's being undercut, and going to cancel those items. You can then go post them again, and you'll be the cheapest again. If you're on a high pop server like mine, for example, or relatively high pop, then your Tome of Illusions here, they're all being undercut. If we look at Tome of Illusions Shadow Pan, for example, they're selling really nicely at 10k, but that doesn't matter because I'm sort of 12th in the queue or something. There's 3 from this guy, 3 from this guy, 2, 2, 1. I'm nowhere near top, and I'm not going to get bought out. However, I think there is a tendency for people to think, oh, you have to be at the auction house all day just cancelling and undercutting. That's really not the case, guys. Obviously, the more you cancel and undercut, the more often you're going to get sales. But, I mean, there comes a point where it's not worth just cancelling, waiting 30 seconds, and then looking again and cancelling. You know, don't waste your life doing that. I think the key thing to remember is to cancel at peak times. So in the evening, also at the weekends if you have time, if you can do it during the day, but always in the evening, just before raid time. So like 6, 7 p.m. is really, really nice. All the way up through raid time to like 11, 12. So if you can run a few cancel scans around then, that's going to be your absolute best chance of getting sales. So another thing to think about is stack size. As we said earlier, most people usually just buy the cheapest auction, so you want to be cheapest at most of the time. However, sometimes people only want to buy a certain stack size. For example, raiding usually lasts around 3 hours, and people often buy a stack of 3 flasks before their raid. Right now, there are no stacks of 3 of Flask of the Whisper packed, and if it was raid time and I had some flasks, I would put them up in stacks of 3, and I wouldn't post for 309. Well, you wouldn't post for 309 anyway, because there's just one for 309, the rest are 350. That's another tip, guys. Don't just post at the very lowest if it's obvious that they're going to get bought out. Always post for the where the most of the items are at. But anyway, if we were posting in stacks of 3, we would go down and look, hey, no stacks of 3. So let's post it for, I don't know, 399. And believe it or not, guys, even though we were posted down at 399 per one, or a stack of 3 would be what, like 1200 gold, people would still buy it. I'm not saying you get the absolute most possible sales, but you would get a fair few, and you'd also get a lot more profit. People are very lazy. Trust me, guys, I even do the same thing. If I'm being lazy and I see some stacks, particularly if I want a specific stack size, you know, for 3 it's kind of different because I probably would just buy the 3. But people don't. They'll be like, whoa, that stack's of 1. I don't want to press 3 buttons. Let's just go and find the stack of 3 and buy that. Trust me, it does happen, guys. And maybe the flasks are quite a bad example because it's only a stack of 3. But I'm talking about stacks of 5, stacks of 10, stacks of 20, stacks of 50, stacks of 100, stacks of 200, depending on the item. Obviously, don't put a flask in a stack of 200 because hardly anyone's going to buy 200 flasks at once, and they don't even stack to 200, so another stupid example. But for certain items, such as Demon Steel bars, such as ore, any sort of ore, you can stack to 200, such as Tome of the Tranquil Mines, you can stack to 20, anything which you can stack to like 20, 50, 100. Post out a load of different stacks, guys, because sometimes people just want a specific stack, and if you're posting at loads of different stacks, you can set TSM operations to do that. In fact, mine do that. Then you're going to have a good time and you're going to get sales even if you're not the cheapest. So the next thing we're going to be talking about is trade chat. This can be useful for lots of reasons. If you want a really quick sale and don't necessarily want the absolute best price, but you just want to sell it rather quickly, then posting around in trade chat and asking people to sort of bargain for the best price is a great option. Also, if you have something expensive, like expensive transmog, expensive battle pets, expensive mount, anything like that, you probably want to advertise it in trade so people know about it, so you can link it in the trade, they can see the link, and it's all good. For example, I have the rhinestone sunglasses. Now these are very rare and very expensive, and a lot of people don't just think, hey, I'm going to go buy some rhinestone sunglasses. That's not something you really think when you go to the auction house. Maybe you do, but most people don't. But if you saw it in trade chat and then you sort of looked at it on yourself and thought, hey, these look really cool, let's ask how much this is, let's try to get a deal done, you're going to be a lot more likely to make a sale. So if I just put in trade chat, want to sell rhinestone sunglasses, super rare cosmetics / whisper meat, and maybe I'll get a response. Because if I'm a random person just reading trade chat, I'll control click on these and go, hey, how do they look? Whoa, they look pretty cool on me. Might get myself one of those. So, you do have a better chance of selling like that. And also, you don't have to deal with the auction house cut. The auction house does take 5% of any sale. So if these are selling for 340k, the auction house will take, like 17k of my profit, and that's not going to be good. So I could sell these for instead of 337, I could sell them for 320. So it'd be cheaper than the auction house for the buyer, but I'd still get exactly the same amount of gold. So that's a thing. Again, guys, don't be too annoying with this. Don't start spamming trade chat all the time. Just spam every once in a while, or just put it every once in a while even. And you're going to get some buyers, or some at least potential buyers. Whether you want to sell it or not depends on the price that they offer. Especially at peak times, it's in the middle of the day now, so probably no one's going to want to buy anything. Also, my server's a bit dead at the moment, unfortunately. But if we were to get any buyers, we'd probably start quite high. So the auction house is 340k. I start at 300k. They might say 200k, and we meet in the middle somewhere at 250k. I'd be happy to buy these for 250k because I bought them for 40k. So that's a 210k profit. Really, really nice. A fourth thing, guys, is the markets themselves. Now, you're likely to see less sales if you're only in one market, obviously, such as just the transmog market, just the alchemy market, or whatever, than being in lots of markets. Or even if you do just want to remain in the one market, you want to expand all of your bases. So if you're in the transmog market, you need a load of transmog, all from all the different raids, all the different dungeons, all different price ranges. If you're in the alchemy market, you need to be doing all the things such as old world potions, the new flasks, some transmute stuff, some Vial of the Sands if you can get it, all that good stuff. It does seem pretty obvious, but this is one of the major reasons I've found when I've actually asked people more about it, why they're actually not getting the sales that they kind of want. When I ask a lot of people about their markets, they tell me that they're just in the transmog market, and I think that's kind of crazy, how you can just be in one such a slow market. Obviously, you're not going to get amazing sales unless you've got hundreds, if not thousands, of transmogs up on the auction house. Now, I know some people can exploit markets and just control them completely. Student Albatross, for example, is currently doing 0 to 10 million gold just selling transmog items, which is very impressive, to be fair. But you've got to remember, guys, he's on a very good server for selling transmog. He farms a lot, and yeah, he's very experienced with selling transmogs, and he does do it fairly well. But most of you are not going to see those sorts of sales, particularly if you're on a less populated server. Transmogs can take months, if not years, to sell. So I always say expand. Why can't you get yourself into another market? If you like farming transmogs and you're in the transmog market, why can't you then farm some pets? And then at least you're in the pet market as well. And why can't you also get a profession going, and get into that market, maybe crafting some profession transmogs? At least then you're still in the same sort of markets, but you've just expanded a bit more, and you're likely to see sales as a result. Another example I will give is of the pet market. Now, pets are very slow sellers, guys, like transmog. They're probably a bit quicker than transmog, but fairly similar. And these do not sell very quickly. You need a lot of them to get sales. Now, I follow Vardis on Twitter. I think it's called Vardis. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Anyway, he's an awesome pet seller, and he sells tons of pets on tons of different realms. And he always posts these amazing pictures on Twitter of his sales. And he's got 500,000 gold in pet sales, or 1 million gold pretty much in pet sales. And I'm like, how'd you do that? That's amazing. And then I realise, or after asking him, he's got up to 500 pets on every server, guys. Up to 500 pets. I do the same thing as him, but I only have 50 pets. So he's got 10 times the pets as me. So he's going to get 10 times the sales. So when he makes 1 million gold and I only make 100k, and I'm like, how come it's so different? Well, actually, it's pretty obvious why it's so different. He's got so many more. He's got basically every pet there is up on the auction house, and I don't. So that's why he's doing better than me at that. So it's the same thing with any market, guys. Either expand your market into loads of different things, which is what I suggest, or if you don't want to do that, at least make sure you're covering all the bases and really making the most of your market, because that's going to get you the most sales. So lastly, guys, is server. Now this is one that you can't often do too much about, unfortunately, but one of the reasons you might not be getting such good sales is because of your server. There are so many low population servers, guys, and these are not very good for sales, obviously, because if you've got way less people on them, you're not going to sell as much. That is just a fact. Now, of course, some people do like their low pop server, and I agree they do have some advantages. They often have a bit more sense of community, and they often can have super huge profits on certain items and all that good stuff. However, for me, I just could not be on a low pop server, at least to main. For my main characters, my main auction house server, I cannot have it on a low pop, just wouldn't happen. If you look back at my old gold cap challenge, I even changed server because it was too low pop. And I didn't even choose a low pop, I chose like a medium, but it was still too low pop for me. My new gold cap challenge or gold challenge, that's on a relatively high pop server. Top 20 in EU. If you're not in the top sort of 20 or 30 in EU, guys, then you're not going to have the best time with sales, unfortunately. And I presume the same is on the US as well. Again, there's not a lot you can do about this apart from moving server, and I'm not going to tell everyone to move server, but unfortunately, if you're stuck on a low pop and there's hardly anyone there, you're obviously not going to get very good sales. I mean, your options then are really, point 4 of this video is to expand your market. So you need to be in literally every single market if you're on a low pop server, just to get your chance of some sales. It's actually quite good then, because you can start controlling certain markets, you can set the prices of certain items, and there is a possibility to succeed. I would never want to do it, it's too slow for me, but you can succeed on low pops if you go into loads of different markets, have loads of different professions, do loads of different stuff. You could see some success. But if you are looking at maybe finding a different server, guys, then go on to WoW Realm Pop. Just on Google, type in WoW Realm Population. Go on the website, and there you can sort realms by server. Anyway, guys, that is it for this video. 5 reasons why you might not be getting as good sales as other people, and how you can potentially improve that. Hope you found it useful, and until next time, see ya.